The day my husband handed me divorce papers, my mother-in-law stood behind him with a smile. She thought she had finally won. She thought she had destroyed the woman who had spent years loving her son. But she made one mistake. She underestimated what happens when a woman loses everything and has nothing left to fear. My name is Sophia Bennett, and for years, I believed my biggest blessing was marrying the man I loved. I thought Ethan Hayes was my safe place. I thought he was the person who would stand beside me when the world turned against me. I never imagined that one day he would be the person holding the door open while I walked away from the life I spent years building. But before the divorce papers, before the betrayal, before I became the woman everyone feared, there was a time when I was just a woman in love. A woman who believed kindness could change people. A woman who believed family meant protecting each other. I met Ethan on a rainy afternoon when my life was completely ordinary. I had just finished a long day at work and stopped at a small cafe before heading home. I was exhausted, distracted, and carrying far too many things in my hands. That was when I accidentally knocked my coffee over. Straight onto Ethan's laptop, papers scattered across the table, coffee covered everything. My face turned bright red. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," I said quickly, grabbing napkins. "I'll pay for whatever needs fixing." I expected him to be angry. Instead, he laughed. "You know, most people just say sorry when they ruin someone's day." I looked at the mess. "I think I ruined more than just your day." He smiled. "Then I guess you owe me another coffee." That was the first time I saw him smile, and somehow that small moment became the beginning of everything. One coffee became daily conversations. Daily conversations became late-night phone calls. And before I knew it, Ethan became the person I trusted more than anyone. He made me feel special. He made me feel chosen. When he proposed, I didn't hesitate. I truly believed I was saying yes to my forever. But there was one person who never looked happy about our relationship. His mother, Victoria Hayes. I still remember the first time I met her. Ethan brought me to his family home for dinner. I spent hours preparing because I wanted to make a good impression. I brought a gift. I dressed nicely. I practiced what I would say. I wanted her to know that I wasn't trying to take her son away. I wanted her to know that I loved him. But the moment Victoria opened the door, I knew something was wrong. She looked at me from head to toe, not like she was meeting her son's future wife, like she was inspecting someone she already disliked. "So, you're Sophia." Her voice was polite, but cold. I smiled. "Yes, it's really nice to finally meet you." She stepped aside and let me in. I suppose Ethan has always been someone who follows his heart before thinking logically. I laughed awkwardly. I thought she was joking. I didn't know she was telling me exactly how she felt. Dinner that night was uncomfortable. Victoria had a way of insulting people without ever raising her voice. "You're very ambitious. You've done well for yourself. You must have worked hard to get here." Every sentence sounded like a compliment, but every sentence carried a hidden message. "You don't belong here." I ignored it because I loved Ethan. And because I believed people could change. After we got married, I tried even harder. I wanted Victoria to see that I wasn't her enemy. I visited her. I helped her when she needed something. I remembered important dates. I treated her like my own family, but the more I tried to get closer to her, the more she pushed me away. And slowly, I started noticing something. Victoria didn't want to know me. She wanted to control me. She had opinions about everything: how I dressed, how I spoke, how I spent my time, how I supported Ethan. At first, I thought it was just a difficult adjustment, but then I noticed something else. Ethan started changing. The man who once defended me began making excuses for her. "She doesn't mean anything by it, Sophia. She's just worried about me. She's my mother." Those words became his answer to everything. Every time Victoria hurt me, Ethan protected her feelings before mine. And I started feeling like a stranger in my own marriage. The worst part was that I kept blaming myself. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. Maybe I needed to be more patient. Maybe one day she would finally accept me. I didn't know then that Victoria had never planned to accept me, because in her mind, I wasn't the woman who married her son. I was the woman who took him away, and she was determined to get him back. What I didn't know was that Victoria wasn't just trying to ruin my relationship. She was preparing to destroy my entire life. And years later, when I finally discovered what she had been planning all along, I would understand one thing. The woman who spent years trying to break me created the strongest version of myself. But first, she had to take everything away. After my first few years of marriage, I started to notice something I never wanted to admit. I was losing my husband. Not physically. He was still there. He still came home every night. He still kissed me goodbye in the morning. He still told me he loved me. But something had changed. The man I married was slowly disappearing, and in his place was someone who questioned everything I did. At first, I blamed stress. Ethan was building his company, and I knew pressure could change people. I told myself he was tired. I told myself things would get better. But then I started noticing a pattern. Whenever Ethan and I had an argument, Victoria somehow already knew about it. Whenever I was upset, she somehow had the perfect advice for him. And every piece of advice somehow made me look like the problem. She's too emotional. She expects too much from you. You're working so hard, and she doesn't appreciate it. I didn't know she was slowly turning my own husband against me. I only knew that the man who used to understand me was starting to see me differently. One night, I came home early from work and heard voices coming from the living room. Ethan and Victoria were talking. I wasn't trying to listen. I was just walking past. But then I heard my name. "She's changing you, Ethan," Victoria said. I stopped. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. "She has you believing you need to choose between your family and her." My heart sank, because that wasn't true. I never asked Ethan to choose. I never wanted him to lose his mother. I just wanted him to stand up for me when she hurt me. "She's not a bad person, Mum," Ethan said, "but she's not the right person for you." I stood there frozen. Those words hurt more than any insult Victoria had ever thrown at me, because I realized something. She wasn't trying to make Ethan hate me. She was trying to make him doubt me. And doubt was much more dangerous. The next morning, Ethan acted like nothing happened. He kissed me goodbye. He asked about my day. He smiled. And somehow, that made it worse, because I knew there was a conversation happening about me when I wasn't there. A conversation where people were deciding who I was, and I had no chance to defend myself. Around that time, I started focusing more on my own career. I had always supported Ethan's dreams. When he started his company, I was there from the beginning. I helped him create business plans. I stayed up late reviewing documents. I used my own savings when things were difficult. I believed we were building something together, but Victoria saw my involvement differently. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as a threat. One evening, I told Ethan that I wanted to start my own business. I expected him to be excited. Instead, he looked worried. "You're serious?" I smiled. "Of course I am." He hesitated. "My mom thinks you're trying to compete with me." I stared at him. "Compete with you?" "I'm not saying I agree with her. I'm just saying maybe you should think about how this looks." That sentence stayed with me. How this looks. Not how I felt. Not what I wanted. How it looked to Victoria. A few weeks later, Victoria invited me for lunch. At the time, I thought maybe things were finally improving. Maybe she wanted to fix our relationship. I was wrong. We sat across from each other in an expensive restaurant. She smiled as she stirred her coffee. You know, Sophia, I never wanted things to be difficult between us. I almost felt relieved. Neither did I. She nodded. But you need to understand something. What? Ethan has always needed guidance. I frowned. He's a grown man. She smiled. A mother always knows her child better than anyone. I felt a chill. Then she leaned closer. You're very focused on building your own life. That's admirable. But don't forget your place. My stomach tightened. My place? Yes. She took a sip of her coffee. Some women forget that marriage is about supporting their husband, not trying to stand beside him. That was the first time I truly saw her. Not as a difficult mother-in-law, not as a woman who needed time to accept me. I saw her as someone who believed I belonged beneath her. And something inside me changed. Because for the first time, I stopped trying to earn her approval. But Victoria wasn't finished. She had been watching me for years. She knew my weaknesses. She knew I cared about Ethan. She knew I would sacrifice anything to protect my marriage. And she used that against me. A few months later, something happened that would change everything. I discovered that Ethan had made a major business decision without telling me. A decision involving money. A decision involving my name. A decision that Victoria had helped him make. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. Instead, he became defensive. You're always assuming the worst? I looked at him. Because I keep finding reasons to. His expression changed, and then he said the sentence I never thought I would hear from my husband. Maybe my mother was right about you. I felt my heart break, because in that moment, I realized Victoria hadn't just been trying to hurt me. She had been trying to replace me, and she was succeeding. But what neither of them knew was that I had started keeping records. Messages, documents, conversations. Not because I wanted revenge, because something in my heart told me I needed to protect myself. And one day, those records would reveal the truth Victoria spent years trying to hide. For years, I thought the hardest battle in my marriage was trying to make Victoria accept me. I was wrong. The real battle was trying to save a marriage that my husband was slowly allowing someone else to destroy. After Ethan told me, maybe my mother was right about you, something inside me changed. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't cry in front of him. I simply looked at the man I loved and realized I was fighting for someone who was no longer fighting for me. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed long after Ethan fell asleep. I looked around the room, the photos on the walls, the memories we created, the home we built. And for the first time, I wondered if I was the only person still trying to save it. The following weeks became even harder. Ethan became distant. He started spending more time at his mother's house. Whenever I asked him about it, he always had the same answer. She needs me. But somehow, whenever I needed him, I was asking for too much. Victoria had become the voice inside my husband's head, and I didn't know how to compete with someone who had spent his entire life trusting her. Then came the moment that changed everything. I discovered a hidden email on Ethan's computer. I wasn't searching through his things. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy. I was looking for an old business document we needed. But what I saw on the screen made my entire body go cold. An email from Victoria. The subject line said, "The next step." My hand started shaking. I opened it, and I wish I hadn't. Because inside was a conversation between my husband and his mother. They weren't talking about fixing our marriage. They weren't talking about helping me. They were talking about removing me. Victoria had written, "Once Sophia signs the papers, everything will finally be where it belongs." My heart stopped. The papers? What papers? I kept reading, and then I saw something that made me feel sick. They had been planning a divorce. Not an emotional decision, not a desperate reaction. A plan, a carefully prepared plan, for months. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to convince myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe there was something I didn't know. But then I saw another message from Ethan. "I know this is difficult, Mum, but I can't keep pretending everything is okay." Pretending? I wanted to scream. I wanted to run into the room and demand answers, but I didn't, because something told me to wait. For the first time in years, I stopped reacting, and I started watching. The next morning, Ethan acted normal. He kissed me goodbye. He asked what I wanted for dinner. He smiled, and I couldn't believe how easily he could pretend. The person I loved was planning to end our marriage while acting like everything was fine. That was the moment I stopped seeing Ethan as my husband. I started seeing him as someone who had chosen a side. A few days later, Victoria came to our house. She walked in like she owned the place. Actually, she always had. She sat on the couch and looked around. "You know, Sophia, sometimes people need to accept when something isn't working." I looked at her. "What are you talking about?" She smiled. "Don't pretend you don't know." My heart raced. "You mean my marriage?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I always wanted Ethan to be happy. I almost laughed, because she said it like she was protecting him, not destroying us. "You never wanted me here." Her expression remained calm. "I wanted what was best for my son." "No," I said quietly. "You wanted control." For the first time, her smile disappeared. Only for a second, but I saw it. I had finally touched the truth. That night, Ethan came home with a folder. I knew what it was before he even placed it on the table. My hands went cold. "Sophia," I looked at him. "Are those divorce papers?" His silence answered me. I stared at the man I had loved for years, the man I supported, the man I defended, and I waited for him to tell me this was a mistake. He didn't. "I think we both know this isn't working." I felt tears forming in my eyes. "Do you?" He looked away. "I just think we want different things." I almost smiled, because I finally understood. He wasn't leaving because we were unhappy. He was leaving because someone convinced him I was the reason he was unhappy, and that someone was standing behind him. Victoria. Watching. Waiting. Winning. I picked up the pen. Ethan looked surprised. "You're not going to fight?" I looked at him. I spent years fighting for this marriage. I signed my name, but I won't fight for someone who already chose to lose me. Victoria's face changed. She expected tears. She expected me to beg. She expected me to fall apart, but I didn't. I stood up, placed the papers back on the table, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned around. "You should both be careful." Ethan frowned. "Careful of what?" I looked at Victoria. "Sometimes the person you underestimate becomes the person you can never defeat." Then I walked away. They thought they had won. They thought they had destroyed me. But they didn't know something important. Before I left, I had copied every message, every document, every piece of evidence. And I was about to discover that my divorce wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. The day I left Ethan's house was the day everyone expected me to break. And for a while, I almost did. I remember sitting in my empty apartment, surrounded by boxes, staring at the life I had lost. The wedding photos, the memories, the plans we made, everything that once represented my future was now packed away in cardboard boxes. People always talk about how painful divorce is, but they don't talk about the feeling of being erased. Because that's what Ethan and Victoria did. They didn't just end my marriage. They rewrote the story. Suddenly, I was the woman who couldn't make things work, the woman who was too ambitious, the woman who changed Ethan. Victoria made sure everyone heard her version first, and her version was simple. I was the problem. For the first few weeks, I disappeared. Not because I was weak, not because I was defeated, because I needed to understand what had happened. I needed to understand how the man who once promised to love me forever could sign papers ending our marriage without even fighting for us. And then I found something that changed everything. A forgotten file on an old hard drive. Inside were years of documents from when Ethan first started his company. I opened them expecting to find old business records. Instead, I found my name, my investments, my ideas, my original plans, the things I had helped create. But there was something else. A document showing that my name had been removed from the company shortly after our wedding. I stared at the screen. I couldn't believe it. Ethan didn't just leave me. He had slowly erased me, and Victoria had helped him. I spent the next few days going through everything. Bank statements, emails, contracts, messages, and the more I uncovered, the more I realized something terrifying. Victoria wasn't just controlling Ethan emotionally. She had been controlling his entire life. She had convinced him that anyone who challenged her was against him, including me. She had spent years making him believe she was protecting him, but the truth was, she was protecting her own power. A month after the divorce was finalized, I received a call from an unexpected person, my former business partner, Rachel. I almost didn't answer. Everyone connected to Ethan had disappeared from my life, but when I picked up, I heard panic in her voice. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." I sat up. "What happened?" There was silence. Then she said, "You were right about Victoria." My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" Rachel took a deep breath. "I found financial records. She has been moving money around inside Ethan's company." I froze. "What?" "She has been hiding losses. She made decisions without Ethan knowing." That didn't make sense. Victoria had spent years acting like she was the smartest person in the room, the perfect mother, the perfect advisor, but behind the scenes, she was destroying the very thing she claimed to protect. Then came the biggest shock. Rachel sent me a file. Inside was a recording. A conversation between Victoria and Ethan. I pressed play. At first, I only heard Victoria's voice. "You need to understand something, Ethan. Sophia was never the right woman for you." Then Ethan responded, "But she helped me build everything." My breath caught, because for the first time in months, I heard regret in his voice. Victoria replied, "She helped because she wanted control. You can't let someone like that take over your life." Someone like that. After everything I had sacrificed, that was who she made me. The recording continued, and then Ethan said something that broke my heart. "I think I made a mistake." I stopped the recording. Because those words were something I once waited years to hear. But now, they meant nothing. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to beg Ethan to remember the woman I was. I was going to become someone he could never forget. I took everything I learned from building Ethan's company and used it for myself. The skills he overlooked, the ideas Victoria dismissed, the confidence they tried to take away. I started again, but this time, I wasn't building a life around someone else. I was building my own empire. 6 months later, people started noticing my name. The woman everyone thought had disappeared was suddenly everywhere. A new company. A new reputation. A new life. Meanwhile, Ethan's company started struggling. The same business I helped create was falling apart. And Victoria? She was panicking because she realized something she never expected. The woman she pushed away wasn't destroyed. She was reborn. Then one morning, I received a message from an unknown number. I opened it. 3 words. "Please come back." I knew exactly who it was from. Ethan, the man who once watched me walk away, the man who believed his mother over me, the man who thought he would be happier without me. Now he was asking for another chance. But he didn't know something. I wasn't the same Sophia who left that house, and if he wanted me back, he would have to face the truth about what he helped destroy. When I saw Ethan's message, I stared at my phone for a long time. Please come back. 4 words. 4 words from the same man who once watched me sign divorce papers without stopping me. The same man who stood beside Victoria while she tore my life apart. The same man who looked me in the eyes and told me our marriage was no longer worth saving. And now, he wanted me back. A part of me wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. For years, I begged Ethan to see me. I begged him to understand that I wasn't his enemy. I begged him to remember the woman he fell in love with, but he only listened when I was gone. I didn't reply. Not immediately. The old Sophia would have answered within seconds. The old Sophia would have asked, "Do you mean it? Do you still love me? Can we fix this?" But that woman was gone. The woman who needed Ethan's approval no longer existed. I placed my phone down and went back to work, because my new life wasn't built on waiting for someone to finally choose me. A few days later, Ethan showed up at my office. My assistant told me someone was waiting outside. When I walked into the reception area, I stopped. Because standing there was the man I hadn't seen in months. But he looked different, not confident, not certain, broken. "Sophia," I looked at him calmly. "Ethan." The silence between us was uncomfortable. He looked around my office. The company logo behind me, the employees walking around, the success I built without him. And I saw the realization hit him. He finally understood. I didn't fall apart after leaving. I grew. "I've been trying to reach you," he said. "I noticed." He looked down. "I know you probably hate me." I almost interrupted him, but I didn't, because for years, I was the one trying to explain my pain. Now it was his turn to speak. I made a mistake. Those words, the words I once dreamed of hearing, they finally came, but they came too late. "I should have listened to you," Ethan continued. "I should have protected you." I stayed silent. I let my mother control everything. My expression changed slightly, because that was the first time Ethan admitted it. Not that Victoria was difficult, not that there were misunderstandings, that she controlled him. "She told me you were trying to take everything from me," he said, "and you believed her." His eyes filled with regret. Yes. The honesty hurt more than a lie, because now I knew. He knew exactly what he had done. "I lost you because I trusted the wrong person," Ethan whispered. I looked at him. "No, Ethan." He looked confused. "You lost me because you chose the wrong person." He didn't answer because he knew I was right. Then he said something I never expected. "Can we start over?" For a moment, I remembered the old days. The cafe, our first date, the promises, the man I thought he was. But memories are dangerous, because sometimes we miss who someone used to be, not who they became. "I spent years trying to get you to fight for me," I said quietly. "I know." "And you only fought when you realized I was gone." He looked away, because there was no excuse. Before Ethan left, he turned around. "My mother wants to talk to you." I almost smiled. Of course she did. Victoria never reached out when she was winning. She only appeared when she was losing. "Why?" Ethan hesitated. "She needs help." I laughed softly. The woman who spent years telling everyone I wasn't good enough now needed something from me. "What happened?" Ethan looked uncomfortable. "The company." I already knew. "The company is falling apart." And there it was, the truth. Victoria had spent years trying to remove me from the picture. Now that I was gone, everything she tried to control was collapsing. The next day, Victoria came to my office. But this time, she wasn't walking in like she owned the place. She looked smaller, older, defeated. The woman who once made me feel worthless was now sitting across from me, asking for help. "Sophia," she said quietly. I waited. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I didn't respond. She looked down. I made mistakes. Mistakes? That word almost made me laugh. Years of cruelty, years of manipulation, years of trying to destroy me. And she called them mistakes. But then she said something I never expected. "I was afraid of you." I frowned. "Afraid of me?" She nodded. "From the moment Ethan brought you home, I saw something in you." I said nothing. "You were independent, strong, confident." Her voice cracked. "And I knew Ethan admired that about you." For the first time, Victoria admitted the truth. She wasn't trying to protect Ethan. She was afraid of losing control. I leaned back in my chair. "Victoria, you spent years trying to make me feel small?" She looked ashamed. "I know. But the thing you never understood," I paused, "is that every time you tried to break me, you taught me how to survive." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, I saw regret. Real regret. But what neither Ethan nor Victoria knew was that I had discovered one final secret, a secret that would change everything, because the divorce they thought ended my story was actually connected to something much bigger. And when the truth came out, Ethan would realize losing me wasn't his biggest mistake. It was trusting the person who destroyed us both. For years, I thought the worst thing Victoria had done was destroy my marriage. I thought the worst pain came from watching Ethan choose her over me. I thought the hardest moment was signing those divorce papers. But I was wrong. The worst betrayal was discovering that the divorce was never just about our marriage. It was about something much bigger, something Victoria had been hiding for years. After Victoria left my office, I couldn't stop thinking about her words. "I was afraid of you." I never expected to hear that from her. For years, she had made herself seem untouchable. She walked into every room like she owned it. She spoke like everyone needed her approval. She made me feel like I was the person who didn't belong. But now I finally understood. People who try to control everyone around them are often the most afraid of losing control. And Victoria was losing everything. That evening, I received a call from Rachel. Her voice sounded serious. "Sophia, I found something else." I sat up. "What is it?" "I went through more of the old company files." My heart started beating faster. "What did you find?" There was a pause. Then she said, "Your name was never supposed to be removed from the company." I froze. "What?" Rachel continued. "When Ethan created the company, the original documents listed you as a co-founder." I stared into the distance. That couldn't be true. I was never a co-founder. "Yes, you were." My hands went cold. "You helped build that company. You invested money. You created strategies. You were part of the foundation." I swallowed. "Then why was my name removed?" Rachel's answer changed everything. "Victoria." I sat silently, because suddenly everything started making sense. Victoria didn't just want me away from Ethan. She wanted me away from the company. She knew if I stayed, I would eventually have a voice. And she couldn't control someone who had power. So she slowly erased me, not just from Ethan's life, from everything we built together. The next morning, I received another unexpected visitor. Ethan, but this time he wasn't alone. He brought documents. "I need you to see this." I looked at the papers. "What are these?" "Financial records from the company." I looked through them. At first, I didn't understand. Then I noticed something. Large transfers. Missing funds. Accounts I had never heard of. "Ethan." His face was full of shame. "I didn't know." I looked at him. "You didn't know because you never wanted to look." The words hurt him, but they were true. For years, he trusted his mother without questioning her, just like he trusted her when she destroyed our marriage. "I thought she was protecting me," Ethan whispered. I looked down at the documents. She was protecting herself. The truth was finally becoming clear. Victoria had convinced Ethan that I was the threat. But the real threat had been beside him the entire time. Then Ethan told me something that surprised me. The divorce. He paused. I didn't want to do it. I looked at him. What? He looked ashamed. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was saving myself from a marriage that was making me unhappy. He took a breath. But after you left, I realized something. What? I was never unhappy because of you. Silence filled the room. I was unhappy because I stopped being myself. For a moment, I saw the old Ethan. The man I fell in love with. But I reminded myself, that man had still made a choice. A few weeks later, the truth started coming out. People who once believed Victoria began seeing her differently. The perfect mother image started falling apart. Family members discovered the lies. Business partners questioned her decisions. The woman who spent years controlling everyone's opinions could no longer control the truth. And then came the moment she never expected. She came to my office again, but this time, she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for help. Sophia, please. I looked at her. Why should I help you? Her eyes filled with tears. Because you're the only person who can fix this. I almost smiled. The same woman who once said I wasn't good enough was now admitting I was the only person capable of saving them, but I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet, because forgiveness doesn't erase pain. And before I decided what to do, I needed to know one more thing. I needed to know whether Ethan truly regretted losing me, or if he was only coming back because he finally realized what he lost. Because sometimes people don't miss you. They miss what you did for them. And I was about to find out which one Ethan was. After everything that happened, I thought I had already discovered every secret Victoria had hidden. I was wrong, because the truth about my marriage was even more complicated than I imagined. And the person who finally revealed it was Ethan. For weeks, Ethan kept trying to prove he had changed. Not with expensive gifts, not with dramatic promises, but with actions. He stopped making excuses for his mother. He took responsibility for his choices, and for the first time in years, he listened to me without trying to defend himself. But trust is not something you rebuild overnight. A person can apologize in a moment, but the damage they caused can take years to heal. I reminded Ethan of that every time he asked for another chance. I'm sorry, he said one evening. We were sitting across from each other in my office. I know, saying sorry doesn't fix what I did. I looked at him. No, it doesn't. He nodded. I know. That answer surprised me, because the old Ethan would have argued. He would have explained. He would have found a reason. But this Ethan finally understood. He had hurt me. Then he told me something I never expected. There's something else you need to know. I looked at him carefully. What? He took a deep breath. The divorce wasn't only Victoria's idea. My heart tightened. What do you mean? He looked down. I was the one who signed the first agreement. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Even after everything, that still hurt. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. I waited. Ethan continued. When Mum first suggested divorce, I was angry. I believed everything she told me. His voice became quieter. She convinced me you were planning to leave me. She showed me messages she claimed proved you were unhappy. I frowned. Messages? Yes. My stomach turned, because I knew I had never written anything like that. What messages? Ethan looked ashamed. Fake ones. That was the moment everything clicked. Victoria hadn't just manipulated conversations. She had created evidence. She had built a story where I was the villain. She wanted Ethan to believe he was protecting himself, but she had been destroying him too. I spent years wondering why Ethan changed so suddenly, why he became cold, why he stopped trusting me. Now I finally knew. Someone had been feeding him lies every day. But that didn't erase his responsibility, because at the end of the day, he still chose to believe them. A few days later, Victoria came to see me one last time. She looked completely different. The confidence was gone. The attitude was gone. She looked like someone who finally understood the consequences of her actions. "I owe you an apology," she said. I didn't say anything. She continued. "I spent years trying to prove you weren't good enough for Ethan." Her voice shook. "But the truth is, I was afraid you were exactly what he needed." I looked at her. "You were afraid of losing control." She nodded. "Yes." For the first time, Victoria admitted it. "I spent my whole life being the person Ethan depended on. When you came along, I thought I was losing my son." I stayed silent, but I didn't realize something. "What?" She looked at me. "I wasn't losing him because of you. I was losing him because I refused to let him grow up." Those words were the closest thing to honesty I had ever heard from her. Months passed. The company situation was repaired. The truth about Victoria's actions became public. People who once believed her finally saw the real story. But the biggest change wasn't what happened to Victoria. It was what happened to me. I stopped caring what people thought. I stopped needing anyone's approval. I stopped proving my worth, because I finally understood something. I was never the problem. I was just surrounded by people who benefited from making me feel small. One evening, Ethan came to see me. But this time, he wasn't asking me to come back. He simply wanted to talk. "I know I don't deserve another chance," he said. I looked at him. "No, you don't." He nodded. "But I want you to know something." "What?" "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." I looked away, because years ago, those words would have healed me. Now they only reminded me of how long it took him to realize. "I loved you, Ethan." His eyes filled with emotion. "I know. But I also learned something." "What?" "That loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself." For the first time, I walked away from Ethan without feeling pain, because I finally understood. I didn't need him to choose me anymore. I had already chosen myself, and that was the one thing Victoria never expected. She spent years trying to break me, but she created someone stronger, someone wiser, someone untouchable. And when the people who destroyed me finally looked for the old Sophia, they couldn't find her because she was gone. The woman they betrayed had disappeared. And the woman who returned was someone they could never control again. For the first time in years, I woke up without feeling like I was fighting a battle. No more trying to prove myself. No more wondering what Victoria was saying behind my back. No more waiting for Ethan to finally see my worth. I had spent so much of my life trying to convince other people that I mattered, that I forgot I was the only person who needed to believe it. But peace has a strange way of revealing things. When the chaos disappears, you finally have time to think. And I started thinking about Ethan, not the man who hurt me, not the man who chose his mother over me, but the man I fell in love with, the man who existed before everything went wrong. A few months after everything came out, Ethan asked to meet me. I almost said no. The old Sophia would have rushed to see him. The old Sophia would have hoped this was the moment everything went back to normal, but I wasn't that woman anymore. So I agreed to meet him because I wanted closure, not because I wanted him back. We met at the same cafe where we first met years ago, the same place where a spilled coffee changed both of our lives. Ethan smiled sadly when he saw me. I knew you would choose this place. I sat down. I almost didn't come. He nodded. I know. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Ethan looked at me. I lost everything because I didn't appreciate what I had. I stayed quiet. I had a wife who believed in me, someone who supported me before anyone knew my name. His voice cracked, and I let someone convince me that you were my enemy. I looked at him. Ethan, the worst part wasn't losing the marriage. He frowned. What was? Realizing that when I needed you the most, you weren't there. He lowered his eyes, because he knew I was right. I want another chance, he whispered. There it was, the words I once dreamed of hearing, the words I waited years for. But something inside me was different, because sometimes you spend so long wanting someone to come back that you don't realize you've already moved on. I loved you, I said. His eyes lifted. I loved you more than anyone. A tear rolled down his face, but I lost myself trying to keep you. He reached across the table. Sophia. I gently moved my hand away. I can forgive you. Hope appeared in his eyes. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to return to the place where I was broken. Ethan looked devastated, but for the first time, I knew he understood. I wasn't punishing him. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I was simply choosing myself. A few weeks later, I received a letter from Victoria. Not a message, not a phone call, a handwritten letter. That alone surprised me. Victoria was never someone who admitted she was wrong. I opened it. Inside were words I never expected to read. Sophia, for years, I convinced myself I was protecting my son. But the truth is, I was protecting my own fear. I saw your strength, and I hated it because I knew Ethan admired it. I spent years trying to make you smaller because I was afraid of how powerful you could become. I stopped reading for a moment, because those words were coming from the same woman who once made me cry. The same woman who made me question myself. The same woman who tried to destroy my happiness. The letter continued. You were never the woman who ruined my family. You were the woman who could have saved it. I didn't forgive Victoria immediately. Some wounds take time. But for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt free. Because her apology didn't give me power. I already had that. A year later, my company became one of the fastest growing businesses in the industry. The same people who ignored me before now wanted meetings. The same people who doubted me now respected me. And the same woman who once told me I wasn't good enough now introduced me to people as my former daughter-in-law, Sophia Bennett. She built an incredible company. I never needed Victoria's approval. But watching her finally acknowledge the truth was satisfying. Not because she suffered, because she finally understood. Years ago, she thought she destroyed me. She thought removing me from Ethan's life would make me disappear. But she was wrong. She didn't destroy me. She released me. The woman who left that marriage was heartbroken, lost, broken. But the woman who rebuilt herself, she was unstoppable. And when Ethan looked at me years later, he didn't see the woman he divorced. He saw the woman he should have fought for. But by then, I no longer needed anyone to fight for me. Because I had already won the most important battle. The battle to find myself again.